comes to meet him. He goes past Elgato! Ronaldinho at his very best. Unstoppable.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
It is Dockerty disappointment for the Oakleigh Cannons, but Dockerty delight for the Bentleigh Greens, their third Dockerty Cup title in sensational circumstances at Lakeside Stadium. A come-from-behind 2-1 win against the Oakleigh Cannons, and Yaqub Mustafa, the man returning from injury, coming off the bench, is the hero. And Bentleigh Greens and Nick Tolios have their second title in their most recent 2 times of asking. Nick Tolios hasn't even completed a full season as Bentleigh Greens manager, and he has won pretty much the 2 things you can ever hope to win as a manager in the state of Victoria. And we have the chance on this week's edition of the NPL Victoria show, myself, Lachie Flanagan and Nick Debano have called in the cavalry to review. Oscar Rutherford is alongside us as well. And not only are we going to be reviewing the Dockerty Cup from the weekend, but the catch-up games as well, which had a very big impact on the promotion or on the playoff race, on the relegation race too, because a big shock result happened at Churchill Reserve. And of course, as a little bit of an extra too, we're going to be joined by one of the victorious players, one of the standout players as well, I thought, from the day later on the program, Bentleigh Greens midfielder / for the Dockerty Cup central defender, George Lambadaridis. We'll get the chance to talk to him later, but we're going to start with the Dockerty Cup. And even before that, we're going to start with welcoming the 2 people alongside me. We've already previewed them. We've said their names. Say my name. And now I'm going to say the names again and welcome them into the show. Nick Debano and Oscar Rutherford. How are you guys going?
It's fine until you touched my shoulder.
Fair enough. Podcast listeners, I placed, somewhat condescendingly, my hand on Nick's left shoulder.
I was fine until
he did not like it. He made an unpleasant, a sour face.
You just wound up and went, I can't really make the sound. It's like it wasn't really that loud, but anyways, it was.
I'm not sure it was. I did not hear it make a sound.
There we go. That's
good to know we're getting into the important things in the opening minutes of this podcast.
But yes,
to intimacy.
I was fine before that, but thank you, Lachie. I'm good. It was a good weekend. Ready to get into all the Dockerty Cup review. I'm shattered I couldn't go, guys. I'm not going to lie. I was really shattered I wasn't able to get to either the Dockerty Cup final or the Nike FC Cup final this weekend due to work. I was actually down in G-Town on Saturday, so I was on the Bay, which didn't really help out for Saturday, but it was a cracking contest. Obviously, you both were there. And obviously, it was a great broadcast as well, which, FNR alum Josh Parrish helmed and did a great job with Musa Barbieri and Damir Kulash. And it was a great game, and congratulations to Bentleigh.
Well, where's the best place to start from the afternoon?
I think we should introduce Oscar as well.
Yes, good
That's
point.
The best place to
Introducing
start.
Oscar is a great place to start. I mean, we can go without it. I've said his name a few times. My name. Oscar, how are you?
I'm also well, yes. And as Nick has said, it was a really good, it was a great weekend altogether, including Saturday's Dockerty Cup final, as Nick has alluded to, a really good production with Josh Parrish and Melissa Barbieri, and it was really good to have the extra layer of the cuts to Damir Kulash on the sideline, providing some expertise. So I thought it was a really good show, and obviously at a great venue and between 2 fantastic teams, and so I thought it was a success of a weekend.
Well, while you were introducing yourself and letting us know how you're going, Oscar, I made the executive call as to where the best place to start, I think, is before the ball was kicked, because obviously the important context, or the slightly quirky context, I guess, of this game was that these 2 sides had played each other so recently. Nick, you were there for that fixture when Bentleigh Greens took on the Oakleigh Cannons on Monday night, right after the weekend after. In fact, they'd had their Australia Cup commitments. Bentleigh obviously playing at home against Broadbent and Oakleigh getting a pretty commanding win on the road to Bonnyrigg. But in that game, Bentleigh won pretty convincingly. And the upshot of that sort of period, that glut of matches, is that both of them went in with a few players who were slightly sore. And I think the big shock in the lineup, I guess, was to see Mario Barcia pullback slot inside that Oakleigh back four. What did you make of the starting 11? I guess other than that, there wasn't a lot in the way of shock, but was it a bit of a surprise to see the Argentine, who we've come to know as a reliable defensive midfielder, slot into that spot for your guys' assessment?
Yeah, because Oliver Kubalay did it in the last meeting, and Oliver Kubalay didn't do a terrible job. I thought, he was up against it against Ajak Riak, who was kind of ragdolling him for 90 minutes, but he held his own for what it was worth. It was a really tough task. He played a bad game at all against Bentleigh in that meeting as well. He actually scored a cracker in that game as well. He sort of meandered forward and got in a good position on the edge of the box and hit that with some venom. But I think the big surprise is they didn't even go with someone like Ryan Lachie, who could have filled in at centre-back in this game.
Well,
and I find that very, very strange, even to play him at left-back and maybe start Pantasopoulos. Odd.
Yeah, it was a curious one as well because Ryan Lachie was named on the bench, both on Sports TG and on the lineup graphics, but we found out after the fact through Josh that he actually never made the bench to begin with. So I think that maybe does explain it to some extent, that Ryan Lachie, who is a versatile player, could have slotted into that defence, wasn't actually available. Not 100% sure on the reasons for that, but that is what I understood. But despite that, Bentleigh, it's worth mentioning, also had some defensive shortages of their own. Ben Carrigan remaining out with injury meant that, as we said before, George Lambadaridis slotted in to the back four alongside Jack Webster. But despite those sort of absentees and the more sort of curious lineup selections for Oakleigh, eventually, Oscar, they were the side who took the lead. Was it a lead that at the time you feel they were good value for?
I would probably say so. I thought that they were slightly the better team in the first half, although it was quite an even contest. There were periods where both teams were on top. Just on the lineup choices that Oakleigh made in particular, and I think it's Chris Taylor remaining true to form and in the faith that he shows in that core group of players. And I mean, I was going to add another one that we've seen play in that fullback position was Anthony Pantasopoulos, who did that against the Knights just a couple of weeks ago as well and did a really serviceable job there. So it's kind of the strength and the weakness of Oakleigh Cannons, I would say, in the way that that core group is so strong and is so good. And we've seen, of course, Wade Decker play at fullback recently as well. So we've seen lots of rotation and different people occupying those spots. And it was ultimately what came back to, I think, bite Oakleigh. But to refer to back to your question, Lachie, yeah, it was a weird first half, I thought. But neither side were dominant at any stage, really, but both sides had spells where they were slightly in the ascendancy.
I think it seesawed even once we opened the scoring. It kind of seesawed throughout, I feel like. Yeah,
for sure. And for Oakleigh to come out bright and at the start of that second half to really... They, I guess, caught Bentleigh not quite back up to speed yet with the game, which we've seen Oakleigh do before and we know is something that they're capable of when you have the likes of, Joe Guest and Joe Knowles available, and that quality really shone through.
Well, Oakleigh obviously right before the halftime break in that seesawing opening 45 did have a good chance to go ahead right before the whistle through Joe Knowles, but not long after, as Oscar was saying, after they came back out, it was Joe Guest, the other Joe, who was able to supply a pretty tidy finish, Nick, after that cross.
Oh, beautiful finish.
Came past the Bentleigh back four at the back post. He really nailed it. I think it was technically perfect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, how many times do you see people just absolutely blaze those over the bar, just connect awfully and the ball just goes flying over? They keep their body up.
Halftime. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a really, really good finish. Great. You thought at that point, at least, that Oakleigh could potentially go on and just see out this result. But if there's one thing we do know about Oakleigh, Lachie, is that, and I hate to say it, but it is a bit of I wouldn't even say it's an urban myth anymore. It's a bit of a term that floats around in NPL Victoria circles about, like, it's a little bit like, you know, how in the AFL you got the collie wobbles. Sorry,
Trying to get the X-Files music up again.
But you've got okay, so you got Oakleigh. Think about a word that you can put in a bit of a prefix that you can add 2 letters.
Just say it, Nick.
I feel bad saying it, but everyone kind of knows it already, don't they? It's just, you know, Chokeley. And I feel bad saying
my
it. But,
name.
Yeah, like
Can't believe you went there.
It has happened. So, I mean, it is disappointing that in the end they weren't able to kick on and see out the result, because it looked like, at least until that point when Strickland equalised, they were just going to go on and win this game. But as we've learnt with Oakleigh is that I wouldn't say it's in the DNA, Lachie, but it has become a bit unsurprising when this happens. And I'm curious to know, is this like maybe a thing, like just when one goes in, then all of a sudden there's a sense that the belief drops off? I don't know. I'm just curious to see, I guess, what actually goes on the psyche of the Oakleigh players, because, you know, it does happen. We've seen it with teams all over the world in big games that maybe they just fade off when the pressure starts to hit them a little bit. They could see that first goal.
Who's an Italian player we can get from the NPL Victoria to do a Giorgio Chiellini style, like, it is the history of the Tottenham, but like, it is the history of the Oakleigh? Can we get Ivan Didamo to do that?
Alessandro Dalmiglio from Eastern. Well, he's not going to be an NPL Victoria. NPL Victoria.
Anyway, we will finish dissecting the rest of the Dockerty Cup final in good time. But for the moment, we should get on to one of the men who was part of the actual doing of that successful Dockerty Cup final for the Bentleigh Greens. A surprise warrior in defence, but a warrior in defence nonetheless on the day. George Lambadaridis joins us now from the Bentleigh Greens. George, congratulations, first of all. How are you feeling after what was a pretty impressive come-from-behind victory in the Dockerty Cup final?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. It was an incredible game to be a part of. Obviously, coming from behind and being 1-0 down, it was a game that was really end-to-end in terms of, different teams attacking at different stages of the game. But, it was great to come up with the result, and it was good to get sort of, our first bit of silverware for the year as well, which is really good for the group leading into Wednesday, obviously tomorrow night, and the rest of the league.
George, when Tom equalised, was there just a sense of confidence that went through you guys that, all right, like, we can go on and win this game at this point? Did you ever feel like, did you feel like that something changed, that sort of the momentum started to swing in your favour a little bit? There was a bit of an extra pep in your step, and you noticed that in that last 10 minutes? Because from that point on, before that, it looked like Oakleigh were going to go on and, close out the result, but you guys just kicked on in those last 10 minutes and almost found another gear.
Yeah, well, we've got an incredible spirit in the group, and it was fun. It's funny, as fun as it sounds. I was actually in the middle of the game. I was actually joking with the referee. I went up for a corner. I said to him, I think there was about 10 minutes to go, and I said, "Mate, I think we're going to win this game before the 90 minutes." And he was laughing at me, and I think there was that bit of belief, because I think the more we settled and we got the ball down and played, you could sort of sense that things were starting to open up for us. So there was that bit of confidence, I think, running through the team in terms of, the result would come. And I was fairly confident, even if we went into extra time, getting another 30 minutes, that we would be able to close it out. But again, credit to Oakleigh. I mean, in the transition and, when they're counter-attacking, they're very dangerous, especially that front 3 or 4 players. So, they do punish you when you make a mistake. So it was always sort of a bit of on edge, but overall I just felt that, there was a bit of, calmness about the situation as well.
So just following up on Nick's question, so what was Tom's goal the thing that sparked that, or are you saying that even before Tom Strickland scored, you were confident that you would get back into that game, whether it took extra time or not?
Yeah, I think, obviously the goal makes a massive difference. It was really about, breaking the deadlock. But I felt, especially after that goal, I really did feel that we would go on with it. Obviously getting that initial goal was good. And I think, obviously everyone that played made a real impact as well. I mean, you look at our bench and who came on and changed the game as well. So I think that was a massive part of the game as well.
Well, I mean, you brought it up, George, so I was going to go somewhere else, but you've taken me to the bench, so it's the natural place to head. You talk about the contribution that those players off the pine made, and none more so than Yagub Mustafa. I mean, to put it in context, and you would be aware of this, but for those watching the show who maybe weren't, he's had quite a lengthy injury layoff. I think it's a hamstring or something soft tissue that's kept him on the sidelines. This was like his first reintroduction, and he comes off the bench absolutely electric, and he gets the winning goal. I mean, what a contribution it was from Jakob in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got that X factor in his game. He's definitely one of the players that can change a game for us. And look, it's not just Jag, to be honest. We've got the depth that we've got in, especially in those, in those positions across the board. I think we've got those type of players. But yeah, no, he was excellent. Obviously, when he came on, he really did change the game for us. He really got in between the lines in their midfield and really drove us forward. So yeah, no, it was brilliant when he came on. And look, Yags is still developing, to be honest. He's had his injuries as well this year. And when he's played, he's scored a lot of goals for us. But seeing him around the place as well, I know that he can also take his game to another level too. Probably with more consistency as he plays.
Well, look, everyone, as you said, sort of chipped in and did their part in different ways. Jag was able to provide that impact off the bench. You played your part in an altogether different way than perhaps many people would have been expecting you to, obviously slotting into that central defence alongside Jackie Webster, no Ben Carrigan. Someone's got to do it. You were the player to step up, and I think I speak on behalf of this entire panel in saying that you did an excellent job in that position. I'm curious to know, how soon did you know in the week leading up to the Dockerty that this was maybe a position that Tolsey was going to place you in, and how did you find it during the game? Because it looked, at least from the outside perspective, that you found it very comfortable.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Now, look, the centre-back position, it is relatively new for me. I have played there a little bit in the past. Before the game, I only found out about it just before the last session because Benny's been a little bit up and down with injuries. Yeah. But look, for me, it is a bit of a shift coming from the midfield, but at the same time, like in terms of my role in the midfield, I generally feel pretty comfortable on the ball. So playing out of the back, which is the way that we play. And you look, I've got someone like Jack Webster next to me as well. He's obviously extremely experienced. But look, it's the culture of the team. Like in terms of we want to play out from the back, so that suits me as a midfielder. Slotting into those positions, it actually can be a bit of a strength sometimes. But yeah, obviously having to deal with centre forwards and I had Clark on the weekend who was really dangerous. Sometimes my height probably helps out a little bit with that as well, being able to get up for a header and things like that. But it is a shift. It's not my preferred position, but I feel comfortable when I need to jump into that position. And I think hopefully the boys and obviously Nick's confident if he needs to put me into that position that I can do a job for the team.
George, how are you finding this stretch of games at the moment? I mean, you got 2 games coming up in the space of 3 days or something like that this week, and obviously prior to this you had Dockerty Cup fixtures, rescheduled fixtures, Australia Cup fixtures as well. How are you finding, I guess, the ramp up of fixtures this time of the year where you got finals to focus on, you had a cup final to focus on, you've got Sydney FC to focus on tomorrow as well? It's daunting.
I'm tired just hearing the list.
Honestly, it sounds exhausting. How are you and the guys sort of working around that? But also personally, how are you finding it?
Yeah, well, we joke about it in the change room. We say we're full-time professional footballers now. Look, we've to be honest, it has been like that, and we've had to make each player sort of individually. I think to get through a lot of this, it's obviously we're semi-professional. We don't train 5-6 times a week, but you've had to go a little bit above and beyond, in terms of your recovery, in terms of, I know me personally, I have to, I do a little bit extra in the gym sometimes as well to just make sure that your body's ticking over, because it is a lot of games, and obviously we're balancing working as well because we're not full time. So, I don't envy some of the boys that, do trades and things like that, where I can imagine what that would be like on their bodies. But it's been around the clock in terms of managing these games, and we're getting constant changes to the scheduling as well with the fixtures. But you couldn't ask for anything better. I mean, we're in every single competition. It's exciting, and I think sometimes the momentum of playing a lot of games in a row when things are going well can actually really work in your favour. And hopefully that's something that we can use to our advantage tomorrow night against Sydney, because we've had so many games as well, and they're obviously coming into starting off in their pre-season. So
yeah,
hopefully we can put it to good use.
And you mentioned the fact about full-time footballers, and obviously you've been in the system before at Brisbane. You know what it's like to be, I guess, playing in that full-time professional environment compared to maybe some of the others who have just played in the NPL system, in the state league system before. Have you and maybe some of those guys who have played at that level tried to drive that, like in terms of, setting that standard of, okay, we need to go above and beyond here. It's not the stuff that you do when you just come into training and on game day, but doing that extra stuff for recovery and whatever else you need to do?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. But it's come from the top. In terms of even our strength and conditioning coach, it's a culture of our club. As much as we are sort of semi-professional, Bentleigh's traditionally been a club that's been successful in a lot of these competitions, and that means having a heavy schedule at this time of the year. So I think it's the culture. We all want to be successful, so we're willing to make that sacrifice, because you only get months like this. They don't come about very often. And that's something that, I've reflected on as well and say, well, okay, regardless of the level you played at, this month is huge in terms of Dockerty Cup, Australia Cup. You never know what could happen tomorrow night. And then obviously we're still fighting in the league as well. So it doesn't come around very often. So you don't want to have any regret. And that's why, doing these extra 1%ers hopefully comes out in the wash and gives you the best possible chance of being able to achieve something. So yeah, I think a lot of the boys have taken on that approach.
And we spoke about the substitutions for the Dockerty Cup final in and of itself, but in managing this workload, I guess, how much confidence does it give you having the squad depth that Bentleigh have? We saw someone like Jack Painter-Andrews go off injured on the weekend, and then you can bring on Mitch Hoare, and you've got Yaqub Mustafa there on the bench. You've got Kayadachi. You've got all these players who have playing experience, and we've seen throughout the season. Is that something that gives, I guess, you as an individual and as a team confidence that there are players who can fill gaps if needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this before, I think the club really nailed down the recruitment side of it this year in terms of the balance that we've got. I'll look at, again, you mentioned a few players, but I even look at myself as predominantly as a midfielder, and I look at, players around me, and, we're all a little bit different. We bring something different to the table. Everyone's got different qualities, and having that level of depth is crucial, especially this time of the year, because it's not just about tactics, and it's not just about who's better on the day. It's a little bit about who's the last one standing, because injuries is playing a huge role, and we've had our challenges with that as well throughout the year, and it's frightening to think that if you didn't have that depth, where would you be? Because we've had to still deal with that and manage that, and getting the recruitment right, not only obviously the right players, the right mentality, good characters for the changing room, but also different qualities that they can bring on the pitch is something that I think we've got. There's different dynamics to our game with different players that we can play at any one point.
Yeah, it's not just the depth of numbers, is it? It's the versatility of those numbers too, because you've got a lot of those players in your forward line who can operate really anywhere across the front three. Someone like yourself who can do a job in central defence if needed. And then a Corey Sewell type as well, who really can go across the back four and do a brilliant job in defensive midfield as well. Those kind of players who can slot in and cover those gaps if need be must be essential as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think, it's good, obviously, from the coaching side of things, that everyone understands each other's roles and the way we want to play. So, you've got the ability to slot into someone's position if it's ever required. But yeah, like I said, I think the balance of the squad and people with having the right attributes, not necessarily being rigid to that position, is really important, because we can change it up at any one time, and people are comfortable. We've got like you said, we've got players that can play in a number 10 position, and then they could be literally on the wing and they can still do a great job for us. So yeah, it comes down to obviously the individual attributes and the way we want to play.
Well, irrespective of those shifting permutations in terms of the actual 11, the one thing that is consistent is the manner in which you guys play under Nick Tolios, and also in recent times your success and your history of causing upsets in the Australia Cup. Obviously, we've seen you guys stun a few A-League teams at the Fortress Kingston Heath over the years. Obviously, Sydney, in some respects, are a different kettle of fish, massively successful A-League men's history, but coming off a disappointing season, they scraped through against Central Coast Mariners on penalties. How are you feeling ahead of that game? Are you hopeful that maybe the Bentleigh Greens can cause another famous cup set?
Yeah, well, there's no question. I'm not going to sit here and say that, it's not going to be a massive test. There is a bit of quiet confidence, I think, and I've sensed that from the group as well. And obviously having that bit of success on the weekend is good, leading into this massive game. But look, I've played in these type of games before, and one thing I'll say is it gives you, stepping out there will give you an incredible amount of energy, especially around the place, and given that we're playing at home. And I feel like that kind of naturally makes you level up as well on the pitch. Like, obviously, they've got quality, those players, because they're playing at a higher level. But, when you're in that environment, it forces you to take your game to another level as well. And to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of players, even in our league that, in the right environment, given the right opportunity, they can do a job even at that level. So, yeah, there's no question that obviously they're going to be a level up. We're going to suffer for parts of that game. I think we have to accept that, but we're not going to go in with a defensive mindset. We're really approaching it in the sense of doing it on our terms, so we don't have any regret. Because, like I said, this opportunity doesn't come along all the time.
And George, you got Port Melbourne after that as well. I mean, it doesn't. These big games just keep rolling around, and Port Melbourne being a team that's right in the mix for a top 2 finish and championship after that as well. I mean, I know that you don't want to look too far ahead, but you kind of have to at the same time if that game obviously happening on the weekend. What are you expecting from Port Melbourne on Friday night?
Yeah, well, Port's been a bit of a dark horse, to be honest, in the league. I find with Port, individually, obviously they have quality as well, but I feel really collectively as a team, how well organised they are. That's what, everyone's been saying all year. The way they organise their press when they're closing you down, the way they sort of work as a unit. That's why I think they've been successful. And they are where they are on the ladder at the moment. But for us, it's going to be a huge game as well, because we obviously need to get a result to solidify ourselves in the 6. And I think, look, the perspective I've got is, once we are in that position, then it will come down to obviously finals, and we can't control the outcome. We don't know where we're going to end up. But, I think once we get ourselves in that position that, we tend to manage finals well. So I'm feeling confident, whoever we can match up against, we can beat anyone on our day. So I'm not too, looking that far ahead, but, we're confident about it. But Port will be definitely a massive test for us. And thankfully we're playing at home, because we did quite well where at our ground.
I am also curious, George, what's Nick Tolios' messaging been throughout this period, obviously with so many big games in succession? Kind of what have been the core themes that he's been driving home with the playing squad in approaching so many substantial kind of occasions in such a short period of time?
Look, he's not, at this time of the year, he's not reinventing how we play. We've done a lot of that work throughout the year and in our pre-season. So it's more about, to be honest, the message he always gives us, he goes, you guys are your own worst enemy. He goes, you can beat anyone on your day. And it comes down to, when you guys stick to the principles of how we play and you execute it properly, we tend to be successful. So I think what he's sort of trying to drum home to us is the importance of, our mentality between the ears, especially at this time of the year. Because if we're approaching games correctly, and hopefully then, a lot of the quality can do the talking on the pitch. So he's putting a lot of emphasis on that, and making sure that, we're in the right headspace, I would say, leading into a lot of these games. And to be honest, he's telling us to just enjoy it, because, like I've said and repeated, I think 5 times in this interview, you don't get all this, you don't get that type of opportunity very often. So it's just about seizing it and enjoying it as well at the end of the day.
The other thing, George, I'm really curious to know about Nick Tolios, because he hasn't even completed a full season as Bentleigh Greens manager, and yet he's won the NPL Victoria title and he's won the Dockerty Cup. Where does he keep the lucky charms at Kingston Heath, and has he shared any of those with the squad? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, we at the end of celebrating that first championship with him when he took over. It gave the feeling like he was there, because he's a very likable character, and look, the group really respect him. But he's definitely been a lucky charm with us so far, and we're still in every competition, so something's working. So
Well, George, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Good luck for tomorrow night. Hopefully a bit more cup magic. Hopefully, a big win for Bentleigh as well. I'll be cheering you guys on and, maybe a potential run all the way. So, it's in the DNA of Bentleigh. So who knows how far you guys can go. And also good luck for the rest of the NPL season as well.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
George Lambadaridis from Bentleigh Greens joining us here. Obviously, it's been a big week for them and it's only going to get bigger tomorrow night. So much on the line against Sydney FC, but really it's a free hit in a sense. There's no expectation for Bentleigh to win tomorrow night, but again, at home, big crowd, hopefully down there at Kingston Heath, it's going to be a huge, huge game.
It should be an absolute ripper. And what's the opposite of... What are the things that are generally considered to be unlucky in life? Stepping on a crack, walking under a bridge? No, not a bridge.
A ladder.
Walking under a bridge is a very normal everyday thing.
Imagine how many people
walking under a ladder.
Yeah, walking under a ladder.
What's the opposite of those things?
Walking under a bridge.
No, that's not lucky at all. That's just a normal thing.
Seeing
idiot.
Three-leaf clover, is it? Four-leaf clover, sorry. Four-leaf.
Three-leaf clover. I can show you dozens.
Yeah. A four-leaf clover.
Okay. Well, Nick, whatever the lucky things are that you do, what's the opposite? Is there a horseshoe one? Rabbit's foot. That's the lucky thing. Yeah. Nick Tolios must have rabbit's foot.
Was
like
it wish
all
chip?
the lucky things.
Remember the wish chip back in the day? Like
he must have
the wish chip. You don't touch it with your thumb.
He must. Oh, the yolk with the eggs with the two yolks in.
Yeah.
Nick Tolios must have experienced all of that.
He must have a whole carton of of two yolk eggs.
Are we sure? Nick Tolios. The only reason I know that he isn't the leprechaun that guards the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is he's too tall. And he doesn't have the right color hair for it. But I wouldn't be surprised. He has got that luck level well, okay. I actually think luck is maybe a bit disrespectful.
No.
But maybe I'm being a bit too disrespectful by saying it's all luck because Nick Tolios has done an excellent job with his Bentleigh Greens side. I think that's fair to say
do you think he's got a carton of two yolk eggs and then every time
just
before a big game, before a big game, he just cracks open as a fried egg for breakfast.
Breakfast at Tolsey's house is the place to be because just everyone, if you like your yolk,
mate, I feel sorry for those who like their egg white omelettes and not when they go to Tolsey's house because if he's got the double yolk, they're missing out on the good luck. But at the end of the day, Bentleigh Greens keep finding a way. They got the win on the weekend. There's so much on the line in this week as well, not only with the Australia Cup, but really with their finals hopes because, guys, they're hanging on as well to a spot in the finals, considering how tight it's getting at the moment. And we forget that loss against Altona feels like an eternity ago now, but that was their last game in the league. And going into that game against Port Melbourne, which we will talk about in just a sec, there's a lot on the line for both teams. It's going to be a cracking game on Friday night.
Yeah, and that was their first, I think they were unbeaten in 7 or 8 games going into that fixture. So really they have had a remarkable run with the exception of that one blip against Altona. Shall we tail off our Dockerty discussion as well?
I think so.
Just quickly, let's just talk about the comeback, really. That's the important part because as George said, as you said earlier, Oscar, the game did go back and forth and it just seemed like kind of as George was getting at, really, he had that feeling that once a team got the momentum and was able to seize control of the momentum, that was the team that would end up winning the game. And in the end, after Lucas Derrick scored what was a very fine goal, a really, really well taken finish from the edge of the box, it just seemed like from that point onwards, Bentleigh did have control of the momentum in this game. It was kind of the first period in the match where it wasn't ebbing and flowing throughout. It really was the first time where it looked as though the minute they got that equalising goal, Bentleigh looked more likely than not. And eventually, after Yago Mustafa came on, I think he was on for 13 minutes, had 14 touches in that time. And one of them, the most telling of them all, the late winner. What an outstanding performance and what a brilliant comeback or turnaround from the Greens.
I would say it was Tom Strickland's goal that was the equaliser.
Yes,
not Lucas Derrick.
Tom Strickland.
But see, I think it's really interesting because to be completely honest, when I was watching it, I didn't feel like Bentleigh were building or anything until the goal. Of course, Oakleigh were gradually becoming more conservative and not taking as many risks, but that kind of natural ebb and flow of the game. But I didn't really see it coming until it happened, really, and then all of a sudden Bentleigh were 2-1
Yeah,
up.
no, that's what once they got that momentum of the goal, like
Once
they
got it.
looked like no one else was winning that game except for them. I mean, I guess what you say, Oscar, really kind of raises an interesting point in the wash of this game. Nick, does Chris Taylor wear any of the blame for this result? Because you look at that game and think they did Oakleigh slowly become sort of more and more, defensive as the game wore on, as they grew more confident in their ability to see it out. Does he deserve some criticism for that approach, or do we have to put it in its historical context? The amount of games that they've played, that sort of being the necessity to not just run these players into the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes both ways. I think when you look at Oakleigh, their defense is absolutely pillaged. Like, let's be real here, guys. Like, this defense is being held together by string at the moment, especially at centre back right now. Aaron Williams is the only fit centre back they've got. I mean, they're really hanging on defensively in that sense, especially against teams like Bentleigh, who are going to run you ragged going forward with the likes of Riak, Payne Andrews, Hoare, Mustafa, Drustis, whoever it is. They're going to run you ragged. And if you're going to go into your show in that sort of game, you're going to find yourselves potentially asking for it a little bit. So I do see a little bit of blame in the sense as well that he made only one change, and it took until the 88th minute to make that change. And that's been a Chris Taylor criticism for it going way back in terms of not making changes earlier. But at the same time as well, that 11 was working at that point. But you would have thought maybe bringing someone on like Chris Lucas maybe a little bit earlier.
I think that's what really frustrated me, actually, is not the fact that it was a late sub, because we're sort of used to seeing that from CT.
But
Like, it does
earlier.
But it was the fact that late sub was Chris Lucas. Like, this is Chris. Like, I know that he has only played a bench role this season, had a difficult year at Altona, but like, Chris Lucas is an absolute killer in front of goals. Like, he has such a significant pedigree in this league, in Queensland as well, with his reputation of being a Johnny on the spot, like being someone who, if you need goals, if you need someone who will deliver for you reliably at an NPL level, like Chris Lucas is the guy. Chris Lucas was that guy for Bentleigh. He's one of the, highest scorers, not just for Bentleigh, but also for the Australia Cup of all time. I think he's their equal top alongside Liam Boland and Patrick Antelmi, I'm pretty sure.
Something like that, yeah.
From Sydney United. So this guy is known nationally, not just within the state of Victoria for being a finisher. And Chris Taylor did not bring him on. I know the sub was prepared before the second goal came on, but he came on in the 89th minute. He had 4 minutes of stoppage time to make his contribution felt. And I know he's not going to be the kind of player who takes the game on his shoulders and decides it in his favour, but I feel like surely you could have given him 10, 15 minutes to really make a mark on this contest.
I suppose that as much as it's true that when I say I didn't feel that Oakleigh were going to concede really up until really they did, that was the first time that Bentleigh overwhelmingly became the dominant team. I suppose you would argue, though, that was foreseeable that would happen, and if it were to happen, it would happen in the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, and ultimately that's what Oakleigh were punished for. So CT perhaps not preempting what would be a likely decline in his team's level of energy. And I think that we saw the antithesis of that in Bentleigh, who got stronger and stronger. And I think we talk about Yaqub Mustafa, who was obviously so influential. Although I will also mention Mitch Hoare, who obviously came on at halftime, and he was brilliant in the second half. He added so much energy and fire to Bentleigh and so much creativity, and that was particularly true in the final stages of the game.
Lachie and Oscar, I've actually got some breaking news that's come across my desk right now. Now, this isn't NPL Victoria related, but it's NPL related. Now, Mandurah City in NPL WA have just announced a signing for the last 2 games of the season. They've signed Lee Griffiths. This is former Scotland and Celtic forward Lee Griffiths. This is not just, just some... I mean, Lee Griffiths has had a lot of problems recently, and we know it's very well documented, but Lee Griffiths is playing in NPL WA for the final 2 games of the season.
Well, he's not playing in it. He's playing in NPLW. Sorry, not NPLW. Western Australia State League 1. He's not even playing.
He's playing second division.
Yeah. Can I say? Because the reason I wasn't communicating my what? Oh my God, into the microphone before was because Mandurah City, something just twigged in my mind. I think I know, and I'm happy to reach out to the right people and try and confirm this. I think I know how this has happened.
How?
I think I know how this has happened because I'm looking through the squad. The name Mandurah City.
Yep.
It just sounded familiar. And there is. I'm glad you brought it up, Nick, because there is an NPL Victoria link here. I was thinking I've heard that name before. There's some sort of connection. There's something there. And sure enough, I go and look at the squad for Mandurah City in State League 1, and one of their star players, their captain, in fact, is none other than former Langwarrin player, mid-season signing in 2019, the Scottish sensation, the Flying Scotsman, John Baird, who had a big career playing in the lower leagues of Scotland, but he's from Glasgow. So I just wonder, he's a very well-connected man. He's played in the top flight of Scotland before for a host of, high profile, not the absolute cream of the crop in Scotland, but clubs who have sort of decent level NRI. I mean, he's played for
St. Mirren,
for Dundee, for St. Mirren, for Cali Thistle. Teams that the average, in the weeds kind of football punter would know. I wouldn't be surprised if he has gone some way to brokering this deal. So there you go, Nick. Good thing you brought it up because, as we learn in this show very often, there's always a connection to NPL Victoria.
Yes,
he's the coach as well. Yes,
so,
you are right.
Like player coach. Yeah. That is unbelievable because I remember there was some rumblings that Lee Griffiths was looking at a move to Australia to potentially.
Well, I won't lie. When I looked at your screen and I saw that transfer pop up on your thing, I thought it said MacArthur.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was MacArthur as well. But
no, I'm not going to make any comment on the actual.
Well, he's playing 2 games here. I mean,
maybe it could be the prep, but I'm not going to make any comment on Lee Griffiths other than I think I know how the signing might have come to pass.
Also have some news. Obviously, if you're watching live, listen to the podcast. Western United play Bulleen in a friendly tonight, guys. Obviously down at City Vista. Now, some big news. If I am correct in assuming this, it looks like Dylan Murnane is starting for Western United as a trialist at left back. It's obviously playing for Melbourne Knights.
Trialist. Well, is that a good chance potentially for us to segue into the catch-up games from this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. But just having a look, obviously there's a lot of NPL flavour in this team. A lot of players who have played at NPL level this season in terms of Noah Holmes and Loughton as well and Kador, all getting minutes, all getting an opportunity at this point of this point of pre-season for Western United after what's been it's been a solid campaign for Western United's academy side who are in 4th in NPL 3 and really pushing towards a potential playoff at least. Obviously, they play North Sunshine this weekend, but they're looking to get promotion to NPL 2 through the playoffs, along with, Melbourne City, who are already promoted, or Melbourne Victory as well, who are 3rd. So something to keep an eye on
Preston,
tonight.
yes.
Yep. Well, I'm talking about the NPL sides. I wasn't alluding to Preston, but yes, Preston as well. So, yeah. Good to see that a few of these players will get an opportunity in the senior teams. So, be curious to see how that one all works out. So,
curious to
Dylan Murnane as well.
And question maybe to the 3 of you, because we have fielded this.
3 of us.
Myself included.
So you're going to ask yourself.
So you haven't seen that invisible man who's sitting to our right. Question to the group, to the trio, of which I am a part.
Yeah.
We have fielded this question from people before in this podcast about who the likely players from the academy teams, particularly Victory and City, might be featuring in the A-League men's this season. Is there anyone from Western? Because I don't really think when we answered that question we really touched on them. Is there anyone who stands out? Because Noah Holmes is someone who I think has had a solid NPL 3 campaign. We saw him make the bench.
Him and Loughton on
we
Wednesday.
saw him and Lawton make the bench in the Australia Cup game. Anyone else you want to throw into the mix, guys?
Well, does Reece Bosnanovsky still count?
Nah, I don't think
Not really?
I think he's progressed.
Nah, well, I mean, the other one is Jake Nidovsky, of course.
Yeah, injured at the moment,
signed his
unfortunately.
scholarship deal, so he's one to certainly keep an eye on.
Yeah, he'd probably be the premier, but I think if you were going for someone other than him.
Other than that, maybe our boy, Yanni Panakos.
Yeah, that was how it was going.
Yanisius Jr., as his Instagram handle is. Don't worry, Yanni. I'm going to keep bringing that up as long as that is your handle. Certainly, because of his recent goal scoring form, he's certainly someone to keep an eye on. But Oscar, I'm actually curious. I mean, Melbourne Victory. Anyone else that you can expect maybe making that jump? We saw Franco Lino get called up to the Young Socceroos camp. Is there anyone else you can see maybe, getting an opportunity, whether it's in these preseason friendlies or maybe, later in this season? Obviously, they're out of the Australia Cup now, but someone who might be able to make that jump?
Yeah, I mean, Franco Lino is an excellent example of someone who's really grown throughout the season in the Melbourne Victory Academy side. I think we've seen a lot of Adem Juratovic, who I think I said last time fits the Melbourne Victory mold. So that's I'm somewhat repeating myself to bring up that kind of to bring up that player again. I think there were some really interesting mid-season signings by Melbourne Victory who have since featured in the Victory Academy side, namely Eli Adams and the goalkeeper Taleb. So some players who we've seen in and around the Australian football circles who I think should they be given more opportunities in the NPL side, it would be really interesting to observe their growth because we've got big raps on both of those players.
Yeah. Well, we may well get to see a couple of those in action tomorrow night because they have a friendly against Dandenong Thunder at George Andrews Reserve. We could maybe break a little bit of news as well.
What's the news, Lachie?
Well, I think if you're maybe looking, if you can't attend that game at George Andrews Reserve tomorrow night,
great opportunity to split screen.
And you're currently watching on the FNR live stream, or you're following the FNR channels to get this podcast. You might not have to look very far for a potential live stream of that game. Yes. That's all I'm going to say for now. But keep your eyes peeled.
The other name that I want to just bring up in terms of call-ups to the Young Socceroos squad is none other than Alex Menelau, who got the call-up, obviously, has been in some good form as well. As of late, played against Manchester United, so he's another one of the two. Now, what are you doing?
You're messing with the cable. I can't hear because you keep playing with the cables.
It's a habit of mine to play with the cable. Alex Menelau and Franco Lino, obviously the two from Melbourne Victory. And, Melbourne City have basically had half their squad picked for this Young Socceroos camp.
I just thought of one more Victory player that I've been really impressed by this season is Patrick Hogan, who was injured, has been injured for a lot over the last couple of years and has just in the second half of the NPL 3 season featured a bit more regularly, and he's really impressive. He's versatile. He's played fullback. He's played on the wing. He's a really great player, so I'd just watch out for him.
It's as good a chance as any because you mentioned the players who have been called up to that Talent ID camp, which is currently going on at the AIS over the next few days. I also think that there's going to be a friendly match, and Nick, you can maybe confirm this for me as you're looking over the press release. A friendly match that's going to be available. I think it's a Wednesday where this Talent ID camp for the Young Socceroos.
3 p.m. Wednesday afternoon on
the MyFootball app. Yep. So if you want to watch some of these players involved, you can do that on the MyFootball app. But the reason we bring it up is because we've had 2 players selected from the top flight, a couple selected from the academy sides, as we mentioned, but 2 from the top flight, one of whom Anthony Pandazopoulos. The other from the Melbourne Knights is Luka Kolic.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, as mentioned as well, to go with them, you've got a whole heap of, we mentioned the Melbourne Victory and Western United players.
11 players who draw their roots back to Victoria.
Reece Bozanovsky is obviously the one from Western United, but looking from Melbourne City, they've got so many that have been picked up.
Jurakovic.
Rafael Borges Rodriguez, Max Caputo, Emin Jurakovic. Just scrolling through here, they've got James Neuvenhuizen as well, the goalkeeper, and Justin Paulili as well. So they've got there's a real Melbourne flavour to this. And I know we're a Victorian-based podcast, but it is good to see there's some of these guys getting rewarded for what they've put together throughout this season, whether it's been an NPL level for the likes of Luka Kolic and Anthony Pantasopoulos, or NPL 3 level as well with their work in the youth sides. And some of these guys playing at senior level in the A-League. Reece Bozanovsky, namely in particular, has really put together a solid run as of late. And, he's earned his spot in the Western United squad. He was getting minutes in the finals. He started on Wednesday as well in midfield. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him this season.
Yeah, and look, shout out to the GV Suns footy factory as well, because I think that they've got 2 players who are former GV Suns juniors, James Neuenhuizen being one of them. Which means if he eventually does, which hopefully he does, get selected for the eventual Young Socceroos, that will have 2 former GV Suns junior products playing at different levels of the national teams. And maybe when Garansky finally, or Alu, I'm not sure which qual will be picked for the Socceroos first, we might have a GV Suns Academy member at every level. I really don't think they get enough credit for that.
No, absolutely.
But anyway, we should get into the catch-up games because we sort of knocked on the door a couple of times. Luka Kolic being selected for the ID camp, playing for the Melbourne Knights. Dylan Murnane trialling for Western United, also playing for the Melbourne Knights. And they got quite a shock result on Friday night as they went back home, Knights Stadium, finally played their round 21 catch-up against Green Gully Soccer Club and ran out 2-0 winners.
Yeah, absolutely, Lachie. Well, I mean, you were there.
I was there.
I mean, you know, goals from Dylan Murnane and Gian Albano. We spoke about Dylan Murnane. I mean, nice little way to, you know, put your name up in lights before, you know, you go on trial at Western United, and a good way for him to end this season. I mean, obviously made the move across from Newcastle after he was released, but now a good opportunity for him to get back in the A-League system. But Lachie, from what you told me and you've said, is that Green Gully looked quite tired in this game, looked quite gassed. And I mean, obviously they get now 9 days to prepare for the Australia Cup game this Sunday against Peninsula. But at this stage of the season, I mean, look, they're more than likely going to play finals, but their fourth place, you know, final, which would have come as a result of finishing fourth, that home elimination final is now somewhat hanging a bit tediously heading into this weekend.
Yeah, a missed opportunity for Gully in this game. They needed just... I mean, a win would have guaranteed their place in the finals. It would have made them odds on to secure that top four spot, which I still think that they are, because Bentleigh Greens below them have obviously also got Australia Cup commitments potentially to worry about too. Heidelberg as well have not got that, but they're playing some really, they've got a tough game against Avenel. They need to win that one first. It's worth mentioning that Gully did go into this game with some absentees, or rather an absentee, a very big one. James Doyle was an out for this game. He got quite a nasty head knock in the game against Heidelberg, and I didn't realise this until I spoke to him at Knights Stadium, but he was actually knocked out cold.
Oh, wow.
On the pitch. And I feel quite bad because while I was talking to James Doyle, I also... remembered that he got a really nasty knock to the face in another game that I did against South Melbourne in Ballarat. He split his lip open quite violently. You might have seen the photos of it on Twitter. It was very, very nasty stuff. So in the games that I've done where James Doyle has played, he has violently split his lip and he's been knocked out cold. So I actually had to apologize. I was like, I'm sorry, James. I'm really sorry. But I think they really missed him in this game, and I do think, as impressed as I was by the Knights, I have to sort of temper my excitement and expectations of what they might be able to do from this game, because I do feel like you've got to factor in the absence of James Doyle, but also I wonder if this was the game where finally, as we've seen for other sides who have had those Australia Cup commitments, if this was the time where that procession of game on game finally caught up with Gully, because really they looked second best for almost the entirety of this fixture. Yes, I guess the counter argument is, well, they got the result against Heidelberg, but let's not forget Heidelberg played in the Australia Cup too. Yep. They also played against an A-League side, and to run an A-League side close or be competitive with them in the way they did, you have to work really, really hard off the ball, especially against a team who are going to dominate possession like Brisbane. That takes a lot out of you, and it wasn't surprising to see that Heidelberg were maybe worse for wear after that game, but finally the same fate has been wrought upon Gully. They just didn't really ever look in this contest, to be honest, like they were going to mount a challenge for the win. I mean, even before Knights eventually opened the scoring, they had the ball off the post twice from George Ott before they eventually opened the scoring. So they were a mile off, and I think that's understandable. It doesn't hurt them or anything, but they almost would have been better just forfeiting the game and having a day off.
I think I understand what you're saying, and I hear, and I think there's lots of reason and truth to what you're saying. I think it is also worth acknowledging that since Melbourne Knights have sacked their coach and since Ben Surrey has come in, we've seen a more, I think, a fluent, not fluent, but just a freer Melbourne Knights side play. And I've liked seeing their last couple of games, and they look like a team kind of with the shackles kind of released.
That's true.
I think.
I mean, even the Oakleigh game, they were
exactly
they were on the scoreline being comprehensively, but they had good chances
And on
to
another night, they
take
could
the
have
lead
won.
in that game as well.
They more than matched it with Oakleigh, who of course are another side who are dealing with intense fixture congestion. So perhaps a bit of fortune in the teams that Melbourne Knights are coming up against at the moment. But nonetheless, they do. You know, in that way that I think you get when you get a new manager, most of the time just look refreshed and more, I think, energised and willing to play almost more expansively and more excitedly.
Yeah, and look, Dylan Murnane obviously got on the score sheet. He was impressive again in this game. I've got to say, since his introduction into the NPL Victoria, I've been really impressed by, I mean, his defensive game I haven't noted so much as his attacking prowess. I would describe him as explosive, really, the way he's able to get forward so effortlessly and find the back of the net. This one, a header, but his second consecutive goal at Knights Stadium. I've really liked what I've seen from him going forwards. I can understand why, particularly as he's a player that's been through the system previously, why Western United are giving him the scope for a trial. But I think as well, if you look at the actual Knights squad on paper, yes, there is maybe a lack of depth with Lucas Selic, we believe, having departed or suffering an injury. There's sort of a paucity of options to really fill in that 10 presence. I think the midfield is maybe a bit one-dimensional. But on actual paper, it's actually quite a good squad. I mean, Jack Marth, I think, can maybe be a little bit inconsistent, a little bit brash, but Aiden Bryce has been brilliant, one of the unsung heroes, I think, of this season. Taylor Shrivers, for the most part, has been pretty solid since he's come in. I've liked what I've seen from him so far. Dylan Murnane is obviously a former A-League player. Luka Kolic, a bright talent all year who's worked into that starting fold, has been recognised for his abilities at a national level now. Anthony Dazelle, a player who, again, maybe a bit of inconsistency, but someone who I do think the ceiling is really high and can produce a lot. And then the front three.
And I would throw in George Ott, absolutely, as you're about to get to. George, I think the mid-season recruits have been really good for Knights.
That New Zealand pipeline has always been good for them, but I think they've hit both on the
New Zealand
head
footy
so far.
factory.
And I think it's just unfortunate for them that these players have come in kind of at the stage of the season that they have, when it's been a bit late to change the trajectory.
and I do. If George Ott isn't scoring, and yes, there's a criticism of him to be made in the sense that he hit the post twice in this game, should have definitely had a goal. But what he's been able to bring to Gian Albano's game, I think, is also really important, because we saw it for the second goal, their beautiful 1-2 sequence that they had completely took the Gully defence out of the equation before Albano supplied the finish. And even if your role as a striker is as a facilitator, as someone who eases burden on other creative outlets, gives the attack a different dimension, gives the defence a different problem, then you're still a really valuable player.
And George Ott alone can't fix the kind of the more fundamental systemic problems at Melbourne Knights, but I think that his capacity to drop deep and kind of connect the rest of the team with the attack is an area where Knights lacked throughout the season.
Especially when you are missing maybe an out-and-out attacking midfield presence, someone who can drop shot. But yeah, at the end of the day, while Gully went into this game hoping that a win would guarantee finals for them, somewhat funnily, even though they were never a team who were actually threatened by relegation, this win actually guaranteed that Knights will be in the NPL for 2023. National Second Division, of course, notwithstanding. But while it was a win that basically means that their final 2 games for the season are, not. I don't want to use the phrase hit and giggle, but they don't do anything really. They're it's sort of inconsequential games. However, I do think the performance, even if it was against a tired Gully side, will give them hope for what might come in 2023 if they can retain the players who have been really solid in this back end of the season and continue to close out the final 2 games of the year with some good performances, because you'd be wanting in your last home game of the season against Altona this Friday to be getting a win.
Absolutely. And as mentioned, if they win that game if Altona just need, I mean, they're technically safe, but like they need a point to
not
make it
technically.
110%. You never know. Dandy City could win 8-0 twice, and Altona could have some big.
I mean, they could do that.
There's a chance. But anyways, of course, they're in action on Friday night. Green Gully. Don't go to Gully Reserve this Friday. If anyone's planning on going, don't go because there is no game there this Friday.
Well, unless you're going to the bistro just for a meal.
Absolutely, but don't go to watch the
fill your
football.
boots.
Yeah, they're playing Sunday against Peninsula Power.
Strictly for non-footballing reasons.
They're going on Sunday.
Support local football.
They're going on Sunday.
Support local bistros.
They're playing on Sunday away, and if you're a Gully fan, you're not making the trip up to Queensland. You could tune on 10 Play to watch that game against Peninsula Power. But they're playing their next game against Eastern Lions in the league the following Thursday on the 18th. So we can actually probably preview that next week. We can preview 2 Green Gully games next week because have their season finale as well.
The case may also end up being similar as well with that Bentleigh Greens game too.
Against Port Melbourne. Well, George seems to think
as it currently stands, it's on Friday, but we may see
that moved.
We may I wouldn't be surprised to see that game shifted to a later date, even if it's midweek.
Yeah.
Even if it's midweek.
Even just Monday
next week. That would probably be feasible. Should we talk about the other game?
Yeah,
because
let's go. Let's get through it. I reckon.
I
mean, end of the day,
us
this
away,
was
Nick,
probably the game that everyone had penciled in their calendar a very long time ago. They said,
It
you know
was
what, it's the game of the round.
The relegation 6-pointer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Eastern Lions already down. They're looking just to scrap a few points at the end of the season, create a bit of havoc, which they did to Hume about a week ago, and they ended up getting a point against St Albans away. It looked like St Albans were on their way to a victory when their captain, Michael Gugic, opened the scoring before Nathan Sim pulled one back. I'll tell you what, look, end of the day, it is a massive point for St Albans, but they're not entirely safe just yet because their form as of late hasn't been great. I mean, it's 1 point. They had 3 losses in a row going into it. They're 4 points clear of Dandy City, but geez, they're hanging on right now. And they might just stay up because Hume and Dandy City are a bit of a just 2 cars colliding at the moment in a car accident, and St Albans just might be the lucky ones to get away. Sorry, Oscar. But anyways.
Too soon, Nick. Too soon.
St Albans, I mean, look.
Do we want to contextualise that inside reference? I feel like we should.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Sorry, Oscar. I don't want to bring up any past traumas.
Oscar is all good, just so you know.
He's fine. If he
As
wasn't,
you can
he wouldn't be
see.
here.
Physically.
Yes.
I mean, his legs are underneath the table. Good thing for the viewing public.
Shush.
Podcast listeners, you're fine.
Anyways, St Albans are 4 points clear. They host Oakleigh on Sunday, which is a big game for them because really it's 1 win and they're safe. Yeah. But they're hanging on. They're hanging on for dear life. Eastern Lions, on the other hand, they're right now just going, you know what? Season's done. Let's just play spoiler. Let's try and just get as many points as we can. Points have been hard to come by. Still haven't cracked double digits this season. They're focusing on next year. Massive point for them. They're next in action, obviously, against Green Gully. So they get a 13-day break before their next game. Then obviously Heidelberg in their last game as well. So they continue to play spoiler. They were playing spoiler for the relegation battling sides. But are they going to play spoiler for the sides battling finals? I guess it just remains to be seen. But a point gain for St Albans, but I think they would have much rather having those extra 2 points in tow because they just would have been that much closer just securing their status because they're hanging in there.
I mean, I've had the privilege a few times this season of being in commentary positions that are very close to Kruni Razov on the touchline.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys if you've had that same experience.
Nope, not yet.
But Kruni Razov, very emotive.
Yeah.
Not frequently emotive, but when he does see cause to display emotion, he doesn't do it in half measures. And I do really appreciate that about him. I would have loved to have had an inside look into his reaction after the full-time whistle in the rooms, because I reckon he would be absolutely steaming that this game ended 1-1, because St Albans really never should have drawn this game against Eastern Lions. They created so many good chances to attempt to potentially win the game outright. Eastern Lions undid them with a set piece maneuver to get a late equaliser. But St Albans should have had this game over. They should have had it done. They didn't, and I think Kruni Razov would have blown a gasket about the fact that they weren't able to do so, because it really, even though it could have been worse, like they could have lost the game and really put themselves under the cosh. 4 points, 2 games, it's a little bit easier to manage, but still, you're wanting to guarantee it, and that was a big flub, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lachie, let's talk about the other catch-up games from the other divisions.
Ah, yes.
Because there's one in particular.
Do we want Oscar's thoughts on St. Albans? I saw Oscar make a face.
Honestly, sorry, Oscar. Go on.
No, I wanted to be dramatic. I don't really have a significant point to make, no. Just other than to say that I think that St Albans would take solace from the fact that Dandy City and Hume both have tougher remaining fixtures.
Yeah, they might stay up, as I said, by default. The two greatest words in English language.
Yeah, I mean, Dandy Nong City have got South and Bentleigh. Can I see them? Can I see them getting points in those games? Yeah. Can I see them getting more than 4 points?
Well, it requires Hume as well to get points.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you never know. Weird things happen in NPL Victoria, mate.
I'm not sure, but look, I think the key question for St Albans now going into this week, which we'll of course preview later, is what kind of appetite do Oakleigh in the context of everything they've got to worry about? They'll be playing the Australia Cup in a handful of days' time.
Port Melbourne's on their ass, mate. They got
after
the
game. No, I know, but they've got so many, the cattle just isn't there for them at the moment.
Got to win,
They've got an Australia, but could they get away with a point? Could they just?
Depends what happens with Bentleigh. Bentleigh need to help them now. Like they need to say, Bentleigh,
that's true.
And that game might
be after the fixture.
Keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer, mate.
Well, I'm just curious to know what kind of appetite Oakleigh have to win that game. What kind of a team they field, what kind of an approach they take, because St Albans maybe would be like, maybe we can. You know what, mate? I'm leaving here with something.
If I'm Oakleigh, mate, I'm going in with an appetite like I'm eating at a big smorgasbord. I'm going in. I want the full buffet. I'm not going in half-hearted.
The opportunity to say I'm going in with an appetite like I'm going to Jack Edwards Reserve and the Souvlaki's on sale was right there.
Okay, well, sorry, but I'm
going to Nikos Quality Cakes at full time.
You're going, You're going in with the appetite that you want to have 2 souvlaki, you want to have a bucket of chips, and you want to go for a frappe afterwards as well at Nikos Cakes. That's hitting all the spots. You don't want to be going in thinking, I just want to have maybe a bottle of water and maybe get a chocolate bar or something and just see how we go. Might tie me over till dinner. No. You're eating and you're taking advantage of the full buffet right there and the full opportunity to stuff your face. Oakleigh need to win this game. Like there is no... We'll talk about it later. Shouldn't be getting this fired up. They need to win this game. There is no BSing about this. Like they can't afford to drop more points in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is they could still play.
Especially if Port Melbourne's
and also, like, no disrespect to St Albans, Oakleigh could still not play at their best.
They could still play. I mean, who they...
They could rest the,
who are they going to rest?
Joe Knowles
and
play Chris Lucas
and they'll still be fine.
They could still win.
Yeah, absolutely. But
anyway, NPL 2 catch-up game. Important result for one team in the promotion race, Nick. I'll leave. You're the correspondent for the NPL 2 now.
Brunswick Juventus got the job done. I mean, even without Gianfranco and Pellizzeri at the helm, obviously suspended.
He's not been sacked?
Yeah. No. Luca Andreacchio.
Clearing us of libel.
Yep. Luca Andreacchio took over for this game against Kingston. They got the 1-0 win. Of course, guess who? Josh Knight with the solitary goal. What that really means is, guys, heading into these last 2 games, and oh my God, I can't wait to talk about NPL 2 a little bit later on the show because, Jesus, I can't wait for this weekend.
You know, I reckon that is a phrase that has only ever been said by people sitting on this table, and it's not even all 3.
I am so emotionally invested in this NPL 2 promotion and relegation race. It is the best league in the world, NPL 2. I just froth it. It is the best. There's so much desperation on the line. There's so many fun characters.
As someone who has been following it for 3 years now, it is pretty cold.
It is great. And you know what? Brunswick Juventus still alive in the promotion race. They are goal difference behind Pascoe Vale, but 2 points now behind Moreland City and only 4 behind North Geelong. So, Lachie, we were talking about the old switcheroo that might happen at the end of this season. It's still alive for Paco and Brunswick Juventus, but for Kingston, on the other hand, they're hanging on by a thread. A thread, guys. Like we're talking a very minuscule thread right here. 2 goals outside of the relegation battle, or the playoff battle, with Werribee sort of just on their tails. But basically by the fact that Kingston have to play GV Suns this week is the reason why they probably will stay up. but Werribee having just a torturous run to the finish.
Yeah. The other important thing for them, of course, is the weekend they play GV Suns is also the same weekend that the two teams above them are taking points off. Well,
absolutely.
Attempting to take points off one another in Brunswick and
But
Langwarrin.
I think 3 points for Kingston might actually be enough for them to stay up. So they get the job done this week. I mean, they've had a tough season. They tried to sort of change things in the midway point of the year by signing guys like Charlie Fry
Like
and
K-Honda.
Honda, as well with Paraskos
not
coming
that
in.
one, just to be clear.
I mean, they went and they thought, all right, well, we can try and make the most of what we can right here, but it just hasn't worked out for Contangalakis' side. I think they'll still stay up, but we'll talk about those games in just a second. The other catch-up game, which I actually saw former FNR alum as well, Tonchi Prusak, wrote the match report on this game as well on the Geelong Addy.
He did?
On Sunday morning when I was down in G-Town.
Friend of the network.
Yep. Geelong 4-0 win against Springvale White Eagles. I mean, for Geelong, it just solidifies their spot in the mid-table. For them, their promotion rate hopes are over. But Springvale, on the other hand, still inside the bottom two by a single point behind Ballarat. But talking about this weekend, Lachie, because we have to give the state leagues a bit of love, only because these are the teams that will be coming to NPL next season.
Well,
Obviously,
one of them is guaranteed now.
Absolutely. So as a result of their, I believe, they win on they play on the weekend?
They played a catch-up game. Yeah.
Against Strathmore. Caroline Springs George Cross will be in NPL 3 next year. A 2-0 win for them, but also a 4-0 win for Essendon Royals against Brimbank Stallions. So what that means as a result is that basically Essendon are promoted. If Sydenham Park don't win, they've got a catch-up game coming up. But if Sydenham Park don't get 9 points for their next three, which I consider quite unlikely, and Essendon Royals absolutely cark it, Caroline Springs, George Cross and Essendon Royals will be in NPL 3 next season. While in the Men's State League 1 South East, Bo Morris are now into second, leapfrogging Burundara after a win on the weekend. That was a 3-0 win against Eltham Redbacks, and obviously Mornington a 2-0 win against Warragul. Your side down there, Lachie. Mornington's still alive for the hunt for promotion. They're obviously only 2 points behind Bo Morris, and that's a tight race to the finish, guys. Looking at that, I mean, Malvern City first on 44, Bo Morris second on 42, Burundara 41, Mornington 40. Gee, it's going to be a fun run to the finish to see who comes up.
I'm really curious to see. I mean, obviously they've got to guarantee it first, but Malvern as an NPL 3 club, they've got
some good
the actual players they've got are of
Damien
NPL
Iaconis.
3, if not more. They've got Damien Iaconis, they've got Rowan McNamee, who's most recently played NPL 3 with Box Hill, James Carvelis as well, the former captain of Northcote City. There's some good talent in that for a State League 1 squad.
And have a look at this, guys, in terms of this weekend in State League 1. Malvern City versus Burundara this weekend.
Look at this.
Yeah, Malvern versus Burundara probably will be the promotion decider because actually if Malvern win that game,
Is that
they are up.
Is that at Zelman Cohen?
That is at Kooyong Park.
Oh, I might actually. What time is that?
3 p.m. on Saturday.
Oh, I might go.
Oh, you're going to ditch Langy.
Oh, good point.
Yep. And of course, Lockie's other team, Mornington, hosting Eltham Redbacks
Not
at
my
3 p.m.
team.
at Dallasbrook Park. Mornington's still alive in the hunt for promotion. So
I wish
keep
them
an eye
all
on
the
that one.
best, but
And,
I have clearly pinned my colours.
That's all right, Lachie. We understand that
to
you
the
have
mast
to in
in
keep
the southeastern support
You have to keep
stakes.
that support just to the side. I understand it. It's okay.
It's not a secret love. It's just an outward.
We understand.
I respect
I
Mornington.
understand.
I don't support them.
I understand you want them in NPL 3 next season, but it is okay. Bo Morris.
I would love to have them in NPL 3, but I don't support them.
Okay. Anyways, Bo Morris taking on as well Mazenod this weekend in terms of the other game to keep an eye on in the promotion race in Men's State League 1. But obviously, Sydenham Park against Corio this week is really the game to keep an eye on in Northwest, while Essendon Royals taking on Keilor Park. So a win for Essendon Royals will get them into NPL 3 or a Sydenham Park defeat. So looking forward to that one. Next week we'll keep an eye sort of on who's going to be coming up next. But Lachie, all right, and Oscar, I reckon let's get into the previews for this weekend.
Yeah, it would be tough for Mornington if they were doing trips to Ballarat and Geelong next season.
Yeah.
They'd
be hoping that Springvale
That
somehow
would be
stay up.
devastating for my side.
And as well, GV Suns, if they go down as well. Imagine that.
Well, I feel like that's for everyone though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, how funny would it, just saying objectively, would it be just hilarious if GV Suns don't win a game?
I think we have discussed this.
And just saying it again. I want to hear Oscar's thoughts. GV Suns don't win a game.
Yeah.
They play Western United in the playoff. Actually, they'll play Melbourne Victory.
More
Sorry, I know
likely.
this is where your allegiances lie with your work, Oscar. But GV Suns don't win a game all year, but then win the playoff and stay up. Wouldn't that be
It
something?
would be a story.
I think
it'd be unbelievable.
I think we've all revealed our work allegiances this evening.
Yeah, well, may as well just come out and say it. I work for Bulleen, but I'm not going to come. And I host Paco Radio, which is not on tonight. But yes, I am still here, and I'm still showing that there's
thank
no
God for
biases
that,
here.
Nick.
Yeah,
Thank
but
God for
anyways, let's get into this weekend, guys. It's a massive weekend of NPL Victoria, the penultimate round of NPL Victoria. So much on the line. Like, you can really feel that finals is just around the corner. We're getting closer towards the nitty gritty. But let's start off on Friday night. Melbourne Knights.
So I was just Nick, you've been at like a 10 out of 10 energy for like
Mate, you know what? I've got to bring the energy. I feel
stamina.
like
It's like watching the Bentleigh Greens
Mate,
radio
I
presenter
start-
form. He just keeps going.
I start
Non-stop.
slow and then I start building it and I come in and I finish strong. But anyways,
saving
let's
yourself.
the
start
Yagub
off.
Mustafa of this podcast.
Absolutely. Friday night footy down at Knight Stadium. Melbourne Knights versus Altona match.
This is the problem with going in 100% the whole time. Eventually, the wheels will fall off.
Eventually, I'll start talking like, we're
Sorry,
talking
car
about
reference, my
talking
bad.
about St Kilda versus Brisbane on Friday night. But no, it is Friday night footy. Melbourne Knights versus Altona. We spoke. I mean, this really is a game between two sides who have, Altona have basically wrapped up their spot in NPL Victoria next season. How do we see this one going? More pride for Melbourne Knights to take out this season. Altona to ride a bit of momentum after their 3-0 win against Bentleigh. How do we see this one going?
I think regardless of what happens, there'll be some excellent commentary on this game. In terms of on the field,
Are you trying to hint at something, Oscar?
no.
Is Chris Gleeson making a return?
That's right.
Wow,
I've
sensational.
missed him.
That's
awesome.
good. No, it's actually awesome.
I take it back. I'm playing,
Wow.
I'm playing to the crowd.
Are you commentating, Oscar, on Friday?
Gee, I mean, if you insist on bringing it up, yeah, sure.
Okay, so
I mean,
the-
that's not that big of a reveal. It's just okay, Oscar's commentating.
No,
Sensational.
this is very respectful to the listeners of the podcast. Now they know to listen to this
Yeah,
game
'cause
on
they
mute.
will
It's
listen-
perfect. Anyway, I will also be doing.
It's very rude to Katie Lambeski. A wonderful
Wow.
commentator. I
Wow.
can't believe you'd say that.
Wow.
I think we're getting too much
I'm gonna
into.
have to cut this clip up and send it to Katie and just say
I just lost myself a very good commentary partner.
you
That's
were
disappointing.
just rude.
Okay.
I'm talking about good energy. You're just flat out rude now in the last bit of the show.
Okay, the locker room chat does nothing for the listeners to this podcast. They want to know the results.
Yes.
They want to know who we.
Melbourne Knights,
Do they want to
Altona.
know who we think is going to win? Well, we're going to tell them anyway.
Yeah.
Melbourne Knights are going to win this game 2-0.
I'm going to go a 1-0 win to Melbourne Knights.
So you're going to go with Desmond for a second.
no,
You go with
Desmond,
2-2.
Well, I was going to do 1-0, but then instead I'll go 3-1 Melbourne Knights.
Okay. Well, no love for Altona here. Fair enough. Okay. Anyways,
Also love
this
the Knights the way they've gone about it the last
Yep.
couple of weeks.
Well, the beauty about Friday night football this week is that you can stagger. There's staggered kickoffs. I mean, actually, it's 3 staggered kickoffs in NPL.TV, which we'll talk in a sec. You can go the triple screen and then you can go from one game to another. It's just sensational. 8:30 p.m., which we think on Friday night is going to happen at this time. We spoke about this game might be moved. Bentleigh Greens versus Port Melbourne. Probably, given the stakes, one of, if not the game of the week. 3rd versus 5th. I am going to go a Port Melbourne 1-0 win. I just get a feeling Bentleigh, if this game goes ahead on Friday, I'm a bit worried for Bentleigh coming off the game against Sydney. Just how much ticker they've got after that game against Sydney. They might be a bit gassed.
And I don't think Port Melbourne are a team you want to play when you have played as often as Bentleigh have. So I agree. I think it'll be a Port Melbourne win. I'd say 2-0.
I'm going to work off the assumption that the game is not on Friday.
Wow, sure.
Wow, okay then.
And the
3D
Is that controversial? No, the reason is because Bentleigh Greens
Probably should get moved.
Bentleigh Greens having slightly more rest time maybe factors into the prediction I'm making, which means it'll be a competitive one. What I would say is I hope very sincerely that this game replicates what the two sides were able to produce last time they met at Kingston Heath. It was a 3-2 ripper in favour of the Port Melbourne Sharks. I think Port came back from 2-1 down to win 3-2 in stoppage time. John Quoll scoring a last-minute header. Now Dandenong City's John Quoll, who scored a last-minute header. One of the best NPL 2 games NPL 2. Excuse me, NPL games that I saw last season. I'm hoping that we get a repeat of this whenever it is, but I do think the result will be the same as it was on that day and Port Melbourne will win, although I'm going to say 3-1 this time.
I think worth saying that even if the game is moved, it will still be in the midst of many Bentleigh games, and that the factors
Yes,
will
but
still be in play.
all I'm saying is an extra couple of days rest might make it more competitive.
I still think
than
Bentleigh
you
could
expect on
win
Friday.
off a short turnaround. I mean, they beat Oakleigh off that short turnaround after playing Broadmeadow. I know Broadmeadow and
I mean, Oakleigh also got their own things to
absolutely.
worry
But
about,
obviously as well, Bentleigh, I mean, if they rotate their squad and they've got that squad depth, if the game gets moved to, say, Monday or Tuesday next week, I think Bentleigh would fancy themselves a lot more than playing on the Friday.
Yeah.
So,
but one thing's for certain, I do agree with your suggestion, Nick. This is game of the round, for sure.
There's a game coming up we'll talk about in just a sec.
I think in terms of quality of the football,
yes, probably, yeah.
like if you want to watch two nice footballing sides play it
Lot
on
of
the
stakes still,
play it on the deck, I think that'll be the game. Narrative-wise, maybe it's a different one.
Saturday afternoon. Now, this is, well, if they win, it will be the 2022 Premiership decider, South Melbourne versus Dandenong City. A lot on the line for Dandy City. I mean, they just simply have to get points right now if they want to stay up in NPL Victoria next season. Down at Lakeside Stadium, 5:45 p.m. I'm going to go South Melbourne 2-1. They're going to really struggle over the finish. Storyline to watch, who leads the line now that Harry Sawyer's gone.
I'm really cognizant of the fact that we have South Melbourne listeners to this podcast, and some of them may be watching live right now, and
your head may now be on the dartboard if you say South Melbourne aren't going to win or drop points.
I'm going to say South Melbourne 1.
Wow.
Dandenong City 1.
Wow.
I just have this feeling. I just have this feeling that even we've debated at length, Nick, how this absence, departure of not sure where you're going with that one, but anyway, we've debated quite a lot on this show.
Yep.
How significant an impact that Harrison Sawyer departure will have.
Yep.
I think if you want to have a game where you're trying to figure it out,
this may be it.
No,
you don't think
I
so?
I don't think a side who are playing, and I'm happy to be wrong here. I'm happy to die by my own words. You can play this back to me next week if I'm wrong.
Have to.
I would I wouldn't be shocked at all if South Melbourne win. In fact, if I had to pick a team, I'd say they'd obviously be the more likely one to win. Easy prediction to make. Yeah, bold call, I know. But Dandenong City fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
Every man will be behind the ball. South, even with Harry Sawyer, have maybe on occasion found the going a bit more tough against those sides who do really, really play in that low block, do compress the space in which South are able to operate. I think they're still my favourites for winning the grand final, but they do have to figure out how they approach the game. Are they going to go with a different tactical approach?
Well, they have to.
Or are they going to try, as Josh suggested after listening to our show last week, Josh Parrish, FE commentator for those who don't know, Mr. Preston himself. Well, I shouldn't really say that, but anyway. Are they going to maybe throw a surprise option up forward?
Will
we
don't see that happening.
Okay, but I'm just countenancing all the possibilities.
Maybe like as a 90th minute.
But as we're establishing just in this very chat, there's a lot for South Melbourne to actually have to figure out, and against the side who are fighting for survival will throw as many men as possible behind the ball, but also are coming into the game with an upset in their backs, with some decent form, with Tommy Semi in ripping form as an individual. I don't know if that's the ideal game to be like, yep, we figured it out, let's get a win. But as I said, happy for this to be played back. And I will admit, South Melbourne fans who are listening and raging internally at my suggestion that you will draw this game, happy to be wrong.
I find, Lachie, your argumentation compelling, to be honest.
However.
Not however. As a result, I also can see Dandy City getting something out of this game. I would go 0-0 though. I can see this being a real scrap. And as we're discussing South Melbourne, I think there will be an adjustment period, if nothing else, to a new attacking lineup in some whatever form that takes.
All I'm saying is Esteban Quintas has had a fortnight to work it out.
But to execute it on the day.
No, I know. But hey, he's had a fortnight to figure out.
Yeah, but he's had two. We're not getting into this debate.
No.
again.
But I'm just saying he's had a fortnight to think about who's going to lead the line.
He's had a fortnight to figure out how to change a system that has been the way for 2 years.
Well, who said they're going to change the system? Maybe they'll play with something bit. Maybe they'll play exactly the same, but just
So maybe they will throw Marko Jankovic.
maybe.
Jankovic,
But I doubt it. I think they'll go Jai Ingham and just try exactly the same way, which I know won't work. But
that won't work. And
we'll
you've
see.
predicted them to win.
Hey,
Javi
I
Lopez
still
up
think.
top.
I still think. Who knows? South Melbourne. I'm saying is South Melbourne
Next
could
game.
still win this game. I still think Dandy City get a point out of this game. I reckon that could be enough to keep them up. By the way, if Hume, we'll talk. Actually, this is a good segue.
next game.
Hume City hosting Dandenong Thunder, 7 p.m. Saturday night. Now, there's a lot on the line this game because not only Hume are hanging on here, Dandenong Thunder can still play finals, guys. They can still play finals, but this is one thing that I'm a bit baffled by, and I'd like to have a bit of a please explain. Like, I understand the opportunity doesn't come around to test yourself against A-League men opposition every week, but you're pushing for finals and you're playing Melbourne Victory this Wednesday. Like,
Well, and they played Melbourne City the week before
isn't that a little bit like, wouldn't you want to just like kind of rest a few bodies? Like, I know they're still playing decent, but like, wouldn't you think against Victory maybe just rest a few guys?
I guess if you were going to, I would say this friendly against Victory is the more forgivable or understandable of the two, considering they actually haven't played this week and they're wanting to keep that match sharpness up. But we will see how it impacts them in this game.
I still think they're going to win. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win 3-1, Dandenong Thunder. They're going to stay alive in the finals hunt. It's going to go right down to the final day.
I don't mind the decision to play these games against A-League men's opposition on the basis that not only for the match sharpness point, but I think that when you compare that to who they play, I think it kind of shifts the goalposts, if you will, for the standard that Dandy Thunder is setting themselves. And I think that can be beneficial to kind of like take a step back down, to have kind of just been through that experience of having to demand more of themselves than they would usually expect. I feel like that could have a positive effect in the short term, which is all they really need it to do, is in the short term. And so on that basis, I too will predict a Dandy Thunder win. I will say 2-0.
This was, again, sort of going back to something I mentioned earlier about one of the best games I saw in 2021 between Port Melbourne and Bentleigh. This fixture at George Andrews is one of the best games I've seen this season. Probably one of the best games I've seen, period. 3-3 between these two sides. This time, though, I think with the form that they're taking into it, Thunder were a little bit more topsy-turvy at that point of the season when they took on Hume. I think it was Hume's first point against Thunder, if I'm remembering correctly at the time. But I think this Thunder side are a different entity than the one that coughed up those points, or the first point of the year to Hume. So I still think it'll be a cracker. I still think it'll be high scoring, but this time I think Thunder will get the win, and I think it will be 3-2. I was going to say 4-2, but I'll stick with 3-2.
If they win, they should stay alive at least for another week.
They would really be wanting Avondale and Heidelberg to draw.
That's going to be an absolute... If Dandenong Thunder's alive, it's just going to create so much more drama for that final day.
Because they play Gully on the final day as well.
And if Gully... Well, actually, they can't catch Gully mathematically. They're 7 points behind Gully. But it just keeps them alive. It keeps the belief, and I think they're playing in the final game. They're at home against Green Gully. So on their home deck, it's going to be rocking down George Andrews Reserve even as well for Wednesday, for tomorrow night for Dandenong Thunder v Victory. So it's going to be good to see if Dandy Thunder can, just keep their hopes alive for one more week. But Hume, they need points. So very curious to see how that one plays out. A team as well that just needs probably 8 points or potentially 3 just to wrap it up. We spoke about it before. St Albans versus Oakleigh, 3 p.m. down at Churchill Reserve on Sunday. Lachie, you're commentating this game as well. How do you see this game going? I personally reckon Oakleigh are going to win this game 1-0.
Look, despite all the job I did before when we were talking about St Albans trying to open the door up for them to get a point off Oakleigh in this game, I do still think that Oakleigh will win. I don't think it'll be an easy game for them to win. I think it will be a bit of a rugged game potentially, but at the end of the day, even if St Albans do make themselves hard to beat in this contest, which is what I'm expecting, because they would probably be reasonably hoping for a point out of this, 3 they'd take, but I think a point is the realistic expectation for Dynamo. I just think Oakleigh have got enough game-breaking quality to get the lead. And I think once they have the lead, they're a great team on the break. They will make it more as St Albans try to search for a route back into the contest. And I think that's kind of what we saw last time they met. So I think I will go 2-0 for Oakleigh.
I was going to actually go with St Albans. But I've just looked through St Albans games. I don't think they've won a league game since May, which is a long time to not win a league game. And it's shattered my confidence in St Albans springing an upset in this instance. So on that basis, I will say I will go with 1-0 Oakleigh as well.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, the concurrent kickoff is huge. Huge down at the Olympic Village. Heidelberg versus Avondale, 3 p.m. Sunday. Now, talking about stakes, this is 6th versus 7th. Avondale wins back in the 6th. Heidelberg out of the 6th. Heidelberg wins. Finals is wrapped up. Now, a draw is what Dandy Thunder fans would probably be hoping for. There's a chance for both these teams still to, well, especially for Heidelberg, still to potentially get a home elimination final.
In the event of a draw, Avondale would, all three from 6th to 8th would be alive on the final day.
Absolutely, and be awesome.
Greens as well, depending on what result they get against Port
Melbourne. But guys, I am going to go with a 2-2 draw in this game. I reckon it's going to be a ripper. I think both teams are going to lay it all out there. It's going to be a really, really fun game. But yeah, Heidelberg and Avondale keep Dandy Thunder alive for one more week and sets up a huge final week where Heidelberg plays St Lions and Avondale have got to play South Melbourne. So talk about big games, what's going to set up in match day 26. For me right now, I am all for the chaos, so I'm going 2-2.
It's kind of funny, these two teams, because their seasons have always been kind of opposite in terms of trajectory.
One's gone like they've gone like...
One's gone up. For the podcast listeners who can't see the graphs that Nick just made, one of them has gone and the other one has gone...
No, you got to do this concurrently, like, you know.
The word's
I can't make two noises at the same time, Nick. What do you expect from me?
I was hoping that my verbal description was sufficient, but sure, please add your musical depictions.
Prediction.
3-1 Heidelberg.
Oh, the same scoreline as last time.
Wow.
Interesting.
Impressive. Very nice.
Oh, I'm going to fully admit I have absolutely no clue how this,
Wow.
I'm
disappointed.
As opposed to the rest of us.
No. As in the prediction I'm making will not be based on any strong inclination of facts and logic, heading into it. As I might with another game. I've provided some context to my predictions for a lot of other ones. But this one, I really can't pick how it's going to go. And that makes me actually think that I'm going to copy Nick's homework and say that it will be 2-2, because that is genuinely the gut reaction was a 2-2 draw.
You know what they always say? Go with your gut.
And part of the reason I put that forward is because it sets up will set up an incredible final day where Heidelberg will take on Eastern Lions, who you would expect them to beat, but Eastern Lions, they've had that ups. They've taken points off teams in the past couple of weeks. It's at Gardeners Creek. Eastern Lions took points off them last time these two sides met. Yes, that was a different Heidelberg side, but that form does count for something. And South Melbourne and Avondale, with Avondale needing the win on the final day.
What happened last time?
That could be one of the all-time games.
Well, one of the comebacks.
It could be one of the all-time games. So I'm going to make a 2-2 prediction, partially because I'm not really sure. And it's easier to steal someone else's answer than actually produce my own, and also because it will set up a really incredible final day. And I think, speaking amongst us, but also speaking to the people who are watching, who are listening, I think an incredible final day of the season is what Victorian football deserves in the context of the last 2 years.
Yep, and that's all at the same time of 3 p.m. next Sunday. Concurrent kickoff.
I want the chaos. I want the drama. I want the excitement, because we have been so starved of all of those things for such a long time.
Well, let's go to more chaos, Lachie, shall we? Let's go to NPL 2, my favourite league. Let's do it. All right. This weekend, big games, fellas.
Green Gully are going to beat Eastern Lions.
Well, that's next Thursday because, we'll talk about that next
Okay, we'll
week,
talk about it
okay?
next
So
week.
sorry to the Green Gully
Okay.
listeners. Anyways, NPL 2, just a quick whip through of the games this week. So starting off Friday night, all right, Pokuah. Oh, it's all right. We're getting there. Anyways, NPL 2, quick whip.
Our producer, just to be clear.
NPL.TV is this is the game of the run. NPL.TV. Pascoe Vale versus Moreland City. I'll be there doing that game solo on the rickety scaffold at CB Smith Preserve at 8:15 p.m. on Friday. So again, you want to have your 3 concurrent kickoffs. This is the game that's smashed in between the 2 others. So this is going to be huge. Pascoe Vale versus Moreland City. We know what's on the line in this game. Moreland City win. They're basically promoted. Pascoe Vale wins. They leapfrog Moreland City and keep their hopes alive of promotion. When on Saturday, we've got Werribee versus Northcote. Again, a lot on the line for Werribee. They simply need to get points to get out of that playoff position. Northcote, on the other hand, just playing for pride and happy Cotsy's corner. Brunswick City versus Lang Warren. Now, this is a huge game. Dunstan Reserve, 3 p.m. on Saturday as well. Langy 3 points clear. Brunswick City only a point clear. Lang Warren basically get a point. Well, actually, they get a point and they're safe. So a lot on the line for them. Brunswick, on the other hand, they get a win and they'll be safe. So again, a lot on the line heading into that one. North Geelong versus Bulleen. Now, North Geelong win this game, guys. They are promoted. Anything less than a win against a team like Bulleen, who it depends what side of the bed they wake up on, and they stay alive for yet another week, and they play Moreland City in that last game. Moreland City in that last game at Well Money Park is going to be interesting. So that's at Elcho. This game's at Elcho Park. On Saturday,
yeah.
Yep, on Saturday. So that'll be an interesting one as well. Manningham versus Brunswick Juventus.
An
again.
Italian derby.
Yes, absolutely. The Blues versus Juventus. Obviously, Juve looking to keep their promotion hopes alive. Slot on the line there. And then at 4 p.m, Kingston versus
That's a
Goulburn
hard
Valley
game,
Suns.
though.
Oh, it's going to be
Manningham are a
it's gonna be
tough team to beat.
huge game, and it's going to be a lot on the line. Kingston and Goulburn Valley as well. We mentioned Kingston win that game, and they should be safe. But again, it all depends on what happens below them. So, a lot on the line there, but guys, that Pascoe Vale Moreland City game. Oh, baby, I can't wait for it. It's gonna be huge. If Pascoe Vale wins, oh boy, it's gonna be.
If you're as enthusiastic about the NPL2 as some of us are on this table, which I'll admit is probably unlikely, even if you're half as enthusiastic, that game appointment viewing on Friday night.
Absolutely, for no other reason. But anyways, NPL 3 this week. Just quick run through these games. All Saturday kickoffs by the looks of it as well. But starts off Whittlesea versus Springvale, bottom 2 sides. Springvale simply just need to win this game and get themselves in a position to stay up. That's a game to really keep an eye on.
That'll be interesting.
Yep, North Sunshine versus Western United. Again, a lot on the line here because North Sunshine win. Can you believe it? They can still make the playoffs.
They're in red hot form too.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable.
I can't believe
If they win the game against Western United, they will be in with a shot on the final day.
And it'll be 5 in a row.
And who have they got in the final day, North Sunshine? That's the big question. They play Ballarat City away. So they're right in it, fellas. They're right in it. The other one as well, Nunawading versus Doveton. That's the NPL 3 fixture on NPL.TV. That game, obviously, at Marnie's Reserve. Nunawading, another team that's still in it. A win for them and a North Sunshine win. And, geez, they could actually
Especially
go into fourth.
if it's a draw between North Sunshine and Western United, perfect really for Nunawading.
No, in a way. I mean, North Sunshine wins and Nunawading wins. Nunawading could be fourth at the end of the week. So either way, it could work either way for them. Melbourne City versus Box Hill, huge game for Melbourne City. Obviously going for the championship right now with Preston. They need to win. Yeah. They lose, and Preston wins against Ballarat City at 6 p.m. at BT Connor Reserve on Saturday. If there's appointment viewing, that's the game to get to. That game will be live streamed on the Preston Facebook page. So that's definitely a game to keep an eye on. And of course, Geelong versus Melbourne Victory's Academy side. Melbourne Victory simply have to win. If they do, they should have a playoff spot.
Just think about how many fixtures we've run through in all three
so
leagues.
Many.
How many times we use the phrase "have to win"?
But there
I guess
are.
that does speak to the
good.
strength of all three of these competitions. I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm just strength.
The
Excitement
chaos,
factor?
the excitement factor.
I was just going to go for strength.
We've got-
It's your strength.
Promotion battle in NPL 2. We've got the finals race in NPL 1. The relegation battles in both divisions. All 3 divisions. We've got the championship race, the playoffs race. Oh, my goodness.
And if I can add Victory playing Nunawading in the final day of the season. So, it keeps getting bigger.
Could you imagine Victory versus Nunawading both on 35 points into that last game? That's an Epping Stadium, isn't it? It would be, because I think
Yes.
and Nana Whiting won.
And Nana Whiting won the previous one at Marnie's reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Guys, all I'm going to say is what a weekend coming up. It is going to be huge.
Huge.
I'm excited. I am so pumped. I feel like a kid on Christmas right now heading into this weekend. Imagine how I'm going to feel next week.
Feel like a kid on Christmas 2 weeks before Christmas is actually happening.
Yeah, mate, you know what? I've got Michael. If there's what's the Michael Bublé equivalent of like Christmas Carol versions for NPL? Is it Frozen Tears?
I can't answer that on the podcast. Anyway, it is a massive final 2 weeks of the season, plus finals and pro role playoffs to come. If you want to keep abreast of it, stick with us on the NPL Victoria podcast. If you missed any of tonight's show, you can, of course, catch it on pretty much any platform where you get your podcast. If you can, the way I like to put it is, if you can think of a podcast platform,
It's that.
we are on there. You can listen to us right wherever you like. If you want to watch this video back again, Nick, you've made quite a lot of important hand gestures. None of them rude, none of them towards me, none of them
Well, you
towards the
touched
viewer.
me at the start, and I was like, mate,
Well, if you want to see that, you can also
no.
You can also watch back the stream or watch future streams live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. But yeah, until next week, we'll have confirmation of when the show will be airing next week very shortly, but we'll have a lot to review and we'll be getting very keen for a simultaneous final day kickoff of the season. But until then, from myself, Lachie Flanagan, from Nick Tabano and from Oscar Rutherford, goodbye for now.
Bye.